Good morning, 7th grade. How are you? I am your English teacher, Ala El Hindi, from the International United Schools for Systems. English Leader, Unit 3, Metal Detectors. In this class, we will talk about metal detectors. What is metal detector? What is made? شو هو الميتال detector؟ اللي هو جهاز كشف المعادن. What is made؟ من شو مصنوع؟ And at the first time, who was using it؟ مين اللي كان يستخدمه في بدايات؟ How does a metal detector work؟ هو كيف آلية عمله؟ How it developed over time؟ كيف هو اتطور عبر الوقت؟ What are the advantages of metal detector؟ شو هي الإيجابيات اللي أعطتنا إياها باكتشاف الميتال detector؟ These days, what are the latest developments of metal detectors؟ شو هي آخر التطورات للميتال detector and how they use it. All these questions will be answered after watching a documentary videos about metal detector, how it's made and how metal detector works. Please try to write notes. Okay? حاولوا تكتبوا لي ملاحظات أو مصطلحات أو كلمات.
Airports use handheld metal detectors to safeguard flights. Treasure hunters use hobby metal detectors to find buried loot. Vastly different purposes, yet the technology behind them is identical. A principle called magnetic induction. It all hinges on tiny electrical currents creating magnetic fields. A tiny electrical current runs through a wire coil inside the detector, creating a magnetic field. When the detector passes over a metal object, the field is disturbed, producing a small voltage variation that triggers the alarm. To make the coil, they use copper wire that's coated with nylon insulation. They wind it around two ends of a plastic bobbin a specific number of times. Polyester tape keeps it from unraveling. Security metal detectors need pure iron glued into the bobbin to increase the magnetic field strength the coil produces. Without it, the coil would have to be several times larger and wouldn't fit inside a handheld wand. The next step is to solder the coil leads to a circuit board, then solder a vibrator motor to enable the detector to vibrate as well as beep when it finds metal. The board contains a microprocessor, the detector's alarm, and other components that react to the signals coming from the coil. The coil and circuit board now go into the wand's plastic housing. A retaining clip holds the vibrator motor in place. They temporarily hook up power to the battery compartment and push a button on the circuit board. This calibrates the board to the coil. They install a sliding cap on the detector's on-off switch. Now they can close her up and stick on the manufacturer's label. The last step is to install the 9-volt battery. No metal detector leaves the factory before undergoing extensive quality control testing. Metal detectors for treasure hunting have larger coils, so they don't need iron inserts to boost the magnetic field. In fact, hobby detectors have two coils, one to transmit and one to receive. This configuration lets you set the device to detect only the types of metal you want to find. Like before, polyester tape prevents the wound wire from unraveling. The leads go into a device called a stripper, which bears the copper wire inside. A testing machine ensures the coil meets the engineering specifications. Next, they place a circuit board in the coil housing. A cable runs from this housing to the detector head, where components interpret the coil's signals. After installing the coils, they solder the coil leads to the board. They immobilize everything with hot glue, then seal the components inside the housing with epoxy. Next, they install a circuit board inside the metal detector's control pad. They plug the cable coming from the coils into the board and power up. This calibrates the coils to the circuit board. Now they test the calibration with 3 different types of material the metal detector might find in the ground: iron, silver, and nickel. If everything works perfectly, assembly continues. They install a small speaker for the alarm. Then they attach the control pad to the head and apply the decals. They attach a handle and arm support, then a long stem. The cable from the coil winds upward around the stem and plugs into the detector head. Signals from the coil travel up the cable to the electronics in the head. A small computer analyzes these signals to determine whether the detector has found metal. If it has, the computer activates a circuit to set off the alarm and display a message. But the ground's by no means the limit. There are even metal detectors designed for scuba diving that are completely submersible.
Have you ever been outside metal detecting, just minding your own business, and then been approached by a beautiful girl who has asked,
"So, how does a metal detector work?"
"No, me neither. But after this video, you will know how to answer if that ever happens." Hey everyone, welcome to True Vikings. If you're new to the channel, my name is Joel, and today we're gonna talk about how a metal detector works. I usually get asked the question that, "Hey Joel, what is the best metal detector ever?" And my answer is always, the best metal detector is the one you know how to use and you know how it works. Well, I never say that because I just came up with that one. But never mind, different metal detectors work in various ways, but I'm gonna tell about the basics of how they usually work. A metal detector contains this coil. There's 2 different coils or wires going around this one, and one of them is the transmitter coil. When electricity flows through this coil, an electromagnetic field is created all around this coil. And when you sweep around the ground, the electromagnetic field follows with the coil. If you move the coil or metal detector over a metal object, the electromagnetic field that is created affects the atoms inside this metal object. In fact, it changes how the electrons move. Electrons are the tiny particles that orbit atoms. The metal detector creates some electrical activity inside the metal object, and when there is electricity inside a metal object, it also creates electromagnetism. So when you move the coil over a metal object, the electromagnetic field that comes from the coil creates also an electromagnetic field around this metal object. It's this second magnetic field that this metal detector picks up. A metal detector also contains a different coil here that is called the receiver coil, and when it picks up a second magnetic field from this metal object, that receiver coil transports it to the circuit here and the loudspeakers that make those cool beep sounds. Okay, so let me explain this in 5 easy steps. First, we have a battery here that activates the transmitter circuit that is built inside this panel. and that passes the electricity along this cable to the transmitter coil. And the electricity passing through this transmitter coil creates an electromagnetic field. And when you sweep this detector over a metal object, the electromagnetic field will go right through this metal object. The electromagnetic field creates an electric current flow running around or through this object. This flowing electrical current will create another electromagnetic field that goes around this object. That second electromagnetic field cuts through the receiver coil, and that receiver coil transports it to the receiver circuit that makes those beautiful sounds. Then we can discuss about different kinds of metal detectors. Magnetic fields are produced by changing electrical fields which oscillate in particular frequencies. Different frequencies give better or worse results depending on what kind of soil you're searching on, what kind of metal you're looking for, and how deep in the ground the metal object is. Although metal detectors work basically in the same way, by converting electricity to magnetism and magnetism to electricity, they come anyway in 3 different types. The simplest one is the very low frequency that is suitable for every basic metal detecting or treasure hunting needs or purposes. There is also the PI or the pulse induction metal detectors that use higher frequencies and pulsed signals. They can generally pick up objects much deeper than the very low frequency detectors. But the pulse induction detectors are not that discriminating, and they are not that widely used. The third type of detector is the full band spectrum detector, or the FBS, that uses multiple frequencies at the same time. And this one, the Minelab Equinox 800, you could say is a FBS detector. You could say it uses several slightly tuned detectors at the same time. Then we can talk about this question that I get asked all the time if I'm outside metal detecting, and that is, how deep can a metal detector go? There's no exact answer to this, unfortunately, because it depends on so many reasons, including the size and the shape of the metal object that is buried. Bigger things are of course easier to detect than the small ones. And of course the orientation of the object plays a big role, that if we have a coin and it lies flat on the ground, it's easier to detect than a coin that is lying sideways. And actually the age of the object plays a role also, that if the object has been longer in the ground, it has corroded more, and that way it's more difficult to find. And then we have the nature of the soil or sand that you're detecting on, that plays a big role as well. And then of course the last point is what kind of metal detector you have, if you have a single frequency or a multi-frequency, so that is important. Generally speaking, a metal detector works at maximum depth of 20 to 50 centimeters. I hope you all like this educational video of how a metal detector works, and if you like this video, don't forget to hit that like button and smash that subscribe button and the bell also, that you don't miss any of our amazing content to come. And see you in the next one.